types of tenancy agreement. A tenancy agreement is an agreement amongst tenant and a house owner. It gives the tenant a chance to live in a property the length the tenant pay lease and take after the principals. It likewise sets out the lawful terms and states of tenant's occupancy. It can be composed down or oral. A tenant is a grown-up who has marked a rent or rental agreement with an owner to lease property, for example, a flat, townhouse, or house. The tenant has a legal relationship with the landowner that makes different duties regarding both sides. Occupancy of lands, buildings, or other property by 1. Title, under rent, or on payment of lease. 2. The time of a tenant's occupancy. 3. A residence held or occupied by a tenant. The tenancy agreement ought to state how much notice tenant have to give landowner before he leaves the property. Tenant is in charge of paying rent for his whole fixed-term tenure. The tenant can move out right on time without paying rent for the full tenancy if there is a break clause in the tenancy agreement. A break clause is an arrangement in a rent which empowers either the landowner or the tenant, or both, to end the rent early. In today's difficult financial atmosphere, tenants are curtailing their organizations or looking to rearrange more positive rent terms, and are practicing their break choices. A tenancy can either be fixed term. A fixed-term tenancy goes on for the set measure of time expressed in the tenancy agreement, yet can be recharged or augmented if the landowner and tenant agree. The landowner or tenant can't pull out to end a fixed-term tenancy early. A break clause is a condition in a tenancy agreement that gives both tenant and landlord the chance to end the tenancy agreement right on time. A periodic tenancy is an agreement that permits the tenancy to proceed for an unspecified time frame. This tenancy requires that a tenant must give 21 days notice preceding emptying a property. Rights and duties are for both owner and tenant have certain rights and duties, regardless of whether the tenant has a tenancy agreement. Tenancy types. Assured shorthold tenancies. The most widely recognized type of tenancy is an AST. Most new tenancies are naturally this sort. A tenancy can be an AST if the majority of the accompanying apply. The property you lease is private. Your occupancy began on or after January 15, 1989. The property is your primary convenience. Your landowner doesn't live in the property. A tenancy can't be an AST if it started or was concurred before January 15, 1989. The lease is more than $100,000 a year. The lease is under $250 a year. It's a business tenancy or occupancy of authorized premises. The property is an occasion let. Owner is a nearby board. Rejected tenancies or licenses. Tenant may have a rejected tenancy or permit on the off chance that tenant lodge with the owner and impart rooms to them, similar to a kitchen or washroom. Tenant will, as a rule, have less insurance from eviction with this sort of agreement. Guaranteed tenancies. Tenancies beginning between 15 January 1989 and 27 February 1997 might be guaranteed. Tenant will have expanded insurance from removal with this sort of agreement. Directed tenures. Tenures beginning before January 15, 1989 might be controlled. Tenant will have expanded security from removal and can apply for a reasonable lease. Tenancy agreement includes. A tenancy agreement includes the names of all people included, the rental cost and how it's paid, information on how and when the lease will be checked on, the deposit amount and how it will be insured, details of when the deposit can be completely or halfway withheld, the property address, the begin and end date of the tenancy, any tenant or landlord commitments, a framework of bills tenant is in charge of. It can likewise incorporate data on Whether the tenancy can be finished early and how this should be possible. Who's in charge of minor repairs? Whether the property can be let to another person or have tenants. The terms of the tenancy must be reasonable and conform to the law. Tenancy agreement can't have anything in it that may in a roundabout way to victimize you. Get legal advice before consenting to an arrangement in case you're uncertain of any terms. Once you're content with it, sign the arrangement and get a duplicate of it. Changes to tenancy agreement. Both tenant and owner must concur so as to change the terms of the tenancy agreement. Preventing discrimination. You can't be oppressed or irritated by your owner due to age, gender, sexual introduction, disability, religion or conviction, race, being a transgendered individual, being pregnant or having a child. Instructions to end tenancy agreement. Tenancy agreement ought to state how much notice tenant have to give landowner before tenant leave the property. Tenant is in charge of paying rent for whole fixed-term tenancy. Tenant can move out right on time without paying rent for the full tenancy if there is a break clause in tenancy agreement. Landowner consents to end the tenancy early. In the event that tenant license consequently runs out after a particular date and tenant need to end the agreement, tenant ought to tell landowner this before tenant permit runs out. 4 free samples of probates, inherited, foreclosures, absentees, landlord, vacant, code violations, evictions list. Visit www.realsupermarket.com.